thank so many people for coming to attend our webinar. This is our Supply Chain Leadership webinar series. The topic today is Integrated Business Planning enabled by SAP. Real quick housekeeping issues. This session is going to be recorded and it'll be available to view afterwards in our private LinkedIn group. So if you haven't joined that group, please give that a look. There's a lot of good white papers and other content there. If you've got any questions throughout today's presentation, please feel free to post them in the message box to the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll be able to get to those right away. So before we jump into the content, I'll just give a quick overview of Spinnaker, the company. We've been around since about 2002. Spinnaker is a boutique supply chain management consulting firm. We specialize in end-to-end supply chain transformation and improvement projects. So typically we address questions that incorporate people aspect, the processes behind supply chain, and the technology that enables both of those things. The team that we'll be hearing from today is from our SAP practice. The SAP team at Spinnaker, we're premier implementation partners for SAP, specifically in supply chain management solutions. The teams are made up of technical consultants that act as system integrators, as well as functional consultants who are experts in the processes behind that. Traditionally, we've worked on the supply chain modules like advanced planning and optimization, the APO suite, and more recently we've been aligned with SAP on some of the new cloud-based solutions, including IBP and the HANA database. Our presenters today are Jay Nirenberg and David Foster. You'll see these two have a combined nearly 6 decades of experience in both consulting and industry. They each have a number of SAP implementations under their belts, as well as functional experience in the processes that enable effective IBP. Their combined industry experience spans just about every industry vertical, including CPG, chemical, manufacturing, high-tech, just to name a few. As we get started, our goals for this session, when walking away from this, we hope that you'll have a clarified understanding of integrated business planning. So both the process of IBP, what is it, as well as the technology and that point of view. We're going to share with you our specific point of view on IBP. We know a lot of companies are talking about it, and we'll tell you how Spinnaker feels about it. We'll talk specifically about IBP from SAP, the technology and how that works. And we'll touch a little bit about Spinnaker services that help some of our clients achieve IBP implementations. Now I'll turn it over to our first presenter, who is Jay Nirenberg. Take it away, Jay.
Thanks, Dan, and welcome everyone. First, we'd like to level set everyone with 2 definitions that differentiate the IBP process from IBP, the software. Everyone seems to define S&OP and IBP a little bit differently, and if you're like me, you're asking, just give me a concise way to think about it. Today, we're going to talk about both, what they are independently and how they fit together. We at Spinnaker think of IBP as S&OP on steroids, if you will. It's a business process. Said another way, IBP is an extended S&OP process because we see it including finance, marketing, strategic planning, sales, and supply chain, as well as customer and supplier exchanges aligning together. Many companies remain in stages 1 and 2 of the maturity model, which you see in the middle of the page, but struggle to advance to stage 3. If you're in stage 1, you might be in the beginning stages of building your operating plan. Stage 2 is often characterized by using basic demand planning and supply planning, then working to balance the 2. The goal is to get to stages 3 and 4, moving to an internal and external collaboration focus, a profitability focus, using better tools to shape demand, optimize inventory, and perform what-if analysis. Those stages will get you to IBP, as you can see by the arrows. To achieve IBP, you will most certainly need tools to help you do that. SAP's Integrated Business Planning is a software solution, a suite of applications, but it's generated a lot of buzz lately because it bridges data across the functions we mentioned earlier into a harmonized view in real time. David will explain more about this later. So to summarize, we're differentiating IBP the process from IBP the software. Let's touch on a few business performance gaps many of you are probably facing today that an effective IBP process can help you solve. For example, you may have irate customers who don't get what they want when they wanted it. You may have chronic low sales relative to plan with a gap to close. And we've observed this situation with a solution to bring marketing, sales, and operations together to determine the best feasible options to close those gaps for leadership's review. I would also bet that several of you have experienced the opposite situation as well, with sales and profit ahead of plan. How will customers react if we throttle shipments back? Boy, what a fun problem to have, right? You may have top-down target pressures to achieve sales goals, relying on a push model. We recently saw a situation where not only did we see expedited transportation costs to meet period-end targets, but the channel became stuffed with inventory following the period end. Actions were to bring visibility to the cost of premium freight and to develop a process to control it. One impact we saw from the period end inventory load was that the customer informed the supplier that they would not see any orders for weeks to come. That's not exactly the kind of news you'd want to bring to your leadership team, would it? We often observe situations where the performance gaps are apparent to everyone, but the root causes may not be so obvious. For example, we see performance gaps with our clients that speak to a lack of basic planning process, which points to, on the right side, disconnected planning processes. Gaps we often see are about capturing marketing intelligence and creating the best possible forecast, which could be caused by an ineffective collaboration processes and tools. Inventory, both too much and too little, might be driven by poor policy alignment. Just recently, we saw a case of misalignment between customer service objectives, producing location objectives, and incentives concerning overhead and output, as well as very tight-fisted financial objectives. The solution was to bring attention to the service and inventory trade-off decisions. Poor forecast accuracy and lack of confidence in the forecast may be driven by a strong top-down mandate or a lack of analytics on true consumption and inventories. In one company, we observed that unit-level forecast accuracy wasn't tracked because it was all about the dollars. We also observed that leveraging a bottom-up forecast perspective was virtually non-existent. Regarding tools, issues could be caused by a lack of them for areas that need them, such as forecasting or scheduling, or a lack of training of the users. So now we're going to take our first interactive flash poll, and it's time to vote. Dan?
Thanks, Jay. Now everyone, this is going to be the first of 2 flash polls that we put into the presentation today. So the object here is to have all of us think a little bit critically about our organization, and it will provide some benchmarking and feedback from those in attendance. So the first question here on your screen right now is, what is the biggest challenge preventing your organization from achieving advanced IBP, those later 2 maturity phases? You've got 5 choices there. It's a multiple choice question. It could be processes, it could be collaboration, training, or analytics, or policy. So please take about 20 seconds or so to make a selection right now. Okay, I see some results are in already. If you haven't yet made a selection, please do so now. We'll be closing the poll in just a minute. Okay, and the polls will close now. You should see the results displaying on your screen. Very interesting. So we're going to be talking about some of these results here later, and if you have any questions about your own organization, we'll be happy to circle back with you for a one-on-one conversation after the presentation. Now we'll get back to the presentation, and Jay will give it back to you.
Thanks, Dan. On this slide, we introduce Spinnaker's S&OP IBP process framework. One thing you'll notice right away is that the framework is really a combination of demand planning, supply planning, and S&OP activities, and you see them in the dotted lines. So it isn't just about the S&OP meetings. You really need to consider the whole process. We really believe that becoming effective in end-to-end planning requires looking at these steps in an integrated way versus jumping to the S&OP and IBP meeting and agendas. It's worth noting that the point of the framework isn't to outline the S&OP meetings, often a 4 or 5-step meeting cadence that occurs generally over a month, but to talk about the end-to-end planning process and how it all fits together. Moving to the basic process framework here, the question that I often get asked is, so where do you start? From a maturity perspective, companies almost always start with the center runway with basic demand planning and supply planning processes. Based on the outputs of these processes, even the earliest startups start to focus on balanced demand and supply to balance customer service and costs. It's critical to align on the planning horizon for your process. Stage 1 and 2 businesses are often focused on the very short-term horizon, often the next month or two. A good practice, and this is industry specific, might be a rolling forecast of 12 to 24 months horizon, often seen in a number of industries such as consumer packaged goods. This horizon helps you view the next year while in the middle of the current year. Moving on to the basic S&OP process, once these processes are relatively stable after a few months, you can execute a basic S&OP process by summarizing the key issues that come up during the demand and supply balancing process and reviewing them with executives to resolve gaps and develop alignment. Typically, while the focus is still mostly on operational issues, executives from supply chain, finance, marketing, and sales participate in the executive review. The outputs evolve into a set of directionally aligned demand and supply and financial plans. Gap closing strategies are developed. At this level of maturity, companies start to realize that answering every question as part of the meeting is very cumbersome, and they begin to develop standardized product and/or customer priorities and other business policies to address common issues and trade-offs. These policies need to align with strategic objectives and, done well, will enable better and faster decision-making. Additionally, at this point in the process, companies typically take a look at the key performance indicators they use to manage the business and develop a set of metrics, typically customer-facing, growth-oriented, cost-related, and supply chain risk-related to guide decision-making and identify issues. Next, we talk about analytics. Once the center runway, and those are the two boxes, by the way, on the top, once the center runway has reached a basic level of maturity, companies start to add additional capabilities to improve decision making. The order of these improvements doesn't follow a strict sequence, but should focus on the areas that drive most value for the business. From an analytics perspective, as processes mature, companies start to see the benefits of using advanced tools like statistical forecasting engines and multi-echelon inventory optimization. Boy, that's a mouthful. In addition to core demand and supply planning tools, and may implement them in addition to improving their core planning tools. These tools help companies both arrive at better answers, so forecast and inventory targets in these cases, but also help companies more fully understand the impacts of business policies such as service levels and lead times so they can set better policies. Next, we talk about collaboration, which is on the bottom. An important step for enabling a strong cross-functional IBP process is collaboration, both internally and eventually externally. Internal collaboration may focus on gathering additional inputs from functions like product development, sales, marketing, market research, strategic planning, and finance to develop a more accurate demand plan. External collaboration might involve working with suppliers and customers to synchronize demand, inventory, and supply across the extended supply chain. Generally, companies need to progress from departmental level collaboration to cross-functional collaboration to cross-company collaboration, and the benefits of these activities can be tremendous. And next we'll talk about tools for process scenarios and financial analysis. From an S&OP and IBP perspective, some of the key improvements that come in the areas of scenario analysis and financial analysis. Being able to evaluate alternatives and consider the trade-offs of demand and supply related investments provides a framework for executives to more fully understand the impact of their decisions and improve performance. A company that has developed these types of cross-functional collaborative processes supported by sound analytics and robust business policies and metrics has definitely transitioned from basic stage 1 and 2 S&OP to advanced IBP. David will speak later about how technology can help support this evolution and is definitely a key enabler for successful processes, but success depends on building a solid foundation. That foundation addresses organizational roles and responsibilities, creating sound business processes, adopting technology enablers, creating sound and strategically aligned business policies, and defining effective metrics to track performance. To be able to migrate across maturity stages, here are 3 critical success factors. Our point of view here at Spinnaker is that process discipline, simplicity, and persistence are key to a successful IBP process and ultimately to better business results. Under discipline, metrics and targets for IBP and supply chain are critical. Engaged and skilled people and clean data are key. Under simplicity, keep your processes and technology simple. Make it work for your business and expand your core building block demand and supply planning systems. Under persistence, you have to have engaged leadership that participates in the process and leads it and has a long-term perspective on building an effective IBP process over time and can address resistance to change, which is inevitable. Now I'd like to turn the program over to my colleague, David Foster, who will walk you through SAP's IBP offering. David?
Thank you, Jay. So on the previous slides, Jay walked you through how to successfully adopt an integrated business planning process and the performance gaps that most companies face. To continue our IBP discussion, I'm going to step you through why companies are looking to enable their S&OP IBP processes with new technology by first giving some background on how we got to where we are today. In the 90s, ERP technology was seen as a software needed to take an organization to the next level. Then next-generation planning applications such as APO came along, which focused on optimizing the supply chain. With mixed results, these tools were used to support S&OP IBP process. APO, for example, had performance issues and shortcomings when the forecast was dollarized, and in general, the ERP and the planning software was lacking a collaboration tool. So more times than not, organizations were forced to use Excel and Access to support the S&OP process and to enable the forecast dollarization and what-if scenarios. But using Microsoft also had shortcomings, since it was hard to track who had the latest version of the spreadsheet and what to do if Excel crashed, not to mention a lack of collaboration and integration to ERP into the planning systems. So the need for an application to support the S&OP and IBP process was still not being met until the past couple of years when new solutions were introduced to address these shortcomings. These solutions focused on supporting the S&OP process through what-if simulations, collaboration, dashboards with analytics, and forecast dollarization functionality. And some of these applications actually have an Excel front end. These new tools bridge the gap that previously existed between legacy ERP planning software and an IBP process, and allows people to focus on creating a consensus dollarized operating plan instead of trying to track down the right Excel spreadsheet. With these tools, you now have visibility of revenue, cost, and profit targets in a centralized dashboard, which keeps everyone aware of their progress in achieving financial goals. SAP introduced its own solution in 2012 called S&OP on HANA. Then in 2014, they created a suite of applications called IBP on HANA. Later in the presentation, I'm going to walk you through these applications in more detail. But first, I wanted to address the question that some may have as to whether or not SAP IBP is a replacement for APO. And the answer is no. IBP is designed to complement APO and to integrate with it. And the next slide will give you an overview of why we think this way. The main point that this slide is making is that SAP's IBP suite was created to address the limitations that many have faced when attempting to use APO to support an integrated business planning process. As we know, APO is an advanced planning tool, and it's focused on optimizing demand and supply, performing global ATP checks, finally scheduling orders at a detailed level, and then transferring those order updates back to ECC. IBP S&OP was built to enable the integrated business planning process through what-if scenarios, collaboration, and financial analysis. Basically, IBP supports creating a consensus dollarized monthly plan M+1 into the future. And in regards to dollarizing a forecast, my experience has been that IBP does it quicker and easier than I've been able to do in APO demand planning. To enable the planning process, IBP uses web-based dashboards, an Excel interface, built-in analytics, and a process management approach. To support what-if simulations, IBP has scenario creation and comparison functionality, which allows for multiple situations to be created and compared to each other. In other solutions, this same what-if functionality would have been difficult to put into place. IBP is able to do this since it's based on HANA technology. This allows for all the key figures to be stored in the same planning area and removes the need for multiple DP planning areas and BI info cubes. Another topic I want to quickly touch on is integration. This slide gives a non-technical view of how the IBP suite supports the data flows between APO and ECC. To enable this transfer of data, IBP has built-in integration via the HCI application, which stands for HANA Cloud Integration. HCI is used to transfer transactional data, history, product location, and customer master data to IBP from APO and to ECC. And flat files can be loaded directly into the S&OP tool. Once the forecast or the supply has been finalized, the associated key figure can be extracted and sent back to APO or ECC. At this stage, though, mass data updates and creation are not transferred back from IBP. So in summary, IBP complements APO and is not meant to replace it, since APO is focused on scheduling and planning, while IBP is focused on creating a consensus dollarized operating plan in a monthly bucket through collaboration and dashboard analytics. In some ways, to support the S&OP process, IBP does the things that APO can't or wasn't built to do. The next slide is going to discuss the individual IBP applications in more detail. IBP consists of supply chain control tower, sales and operations planning, inventory, and supply. Then sometime in 2015, demand and response are going to be released. Basically, SAP IBP is helping organizations bring together finance, sales, and production that can be worlds apart in terms of location, KPIs, or beliefs, and then to have everyone work together. What's different with IBP is that visibility is not limited by system performance. Communication is supported by embedded social media, and then there's an Excel front end. The first one we'll discuss today is SAP's IBP Supply Chain Control Tower. This application provides an end-to-end view of the supply chain with decision-making analytics and uses scorecards and dashboards coupled with exception management. Some uses for it is to track and manage and measure the effectiveness of a promotion across multiple sales channels, geographic locations, and business lines. And it can provide visibility of the entire network from raw materials to finished good across multiple locations. So in some ways, it's your eye in the sky, so to speak, that allows you to view how your entire organization is doing. Next is IBP S&OP. This application matches demand and supply plans to financial objectives to drive profit optimization and cost minimization by leveraging scenarios and scenario comparison. It was developed specifically to enable the sales and operating or integrated business planning process. It can monitorize the operational plan in order to reach a consensus between sales, finance, and supply, and it can be used to communicate scenarios in terms of profitability and cost revenue impacts, as in the case of a proposed price increase or a sudden drop in the price of a commodity, such as oil, which just happened. So it's nice to be able to see those impacts quickly, as opposed to waiting a couple of weeks. S&OP supports an organization that is focused on consensus building and socializing one set of numbers throughout the planning cycle by using built-in dashboards, analytics, task management, coupled with what-if scenario and simulation capability. S&OP still uses the concept of planning areas, key figures, and master data attributes, which is similar to an APO planning area setup, but there is not the concept of CBCs. In S&OP, the relationships are created when the master data is loaded, which is a flexible way to create your hierarchies. For example, if a load file is created for a specific customer location product combination, then this relationship is created accordingly in S&OP. Also, as mentioned earlier, performance has been enhanced with HANA, and this allows for all data to be stored in the same planning area. This makes scenario comparison easier, faster, and removes the need to transfer the data to info cubes for consolidation. And in some ways, S&OP is a project management tool for the integrated business planning process, since it helps to track down why the numbers have not been finalized and answers the questions who or what is holding up the process. Additionally, S&OP is not transactional based as APO is, but navigation is similar to clicking on links in a web page. So for those who know APO, no more /n. Next is SAP's IBP Supply. This is an extension to IBP S&OP and develops a time phase constrained or multi-level production plan using heuristics or optimization with what-if and scenario planning. It has the most impact when there is a need to monitorize the rough cut capacity planning process and to gain visibility into supply chain bottlenecks. Last but not least, there's SAP's IBP Inventory application. It uses scenarios and what-if analysis to determine the time phase inventory targets for semi-finished good, finished good, and raw materials. It also provides a network-wide view of the inventory levels. Now, basically, it is setting time phase safety stock levels across your multi-echelon network. So that was a brief summary of the IBP applications that are currently available. The next slide discusses the benefits that can be found when using SAP's IBP solution. So what we at Spinnaker have done is taken a view and defining the benefits based on our experiences and our clients' feedback. And we believe that SAP IBP Suite enables an organization to move to that stage 3, stage 4 of the S&OP maturity curve, and I'll walk you through why. It has what-if scenario modeling. This is an important point, since historically running interactive scenarios and other SAP tools was cumbersome and drove organizations to revert to spreadsheets. With this capability, different forecast, pricing situations can be created and compared to a business baseline, all within the same data set. So now you can quickly model that supply chain disruption or a surprise drop in demand. IBP then gives you the chance to quickly react and reach a consensus. Without such an application, I've seen organizations take weeks or months to reach an agreement, and in the meantime, the world has moved on. It can monitorize the operating plan. This helps everyone see the revenue and profit impact when changes are made to the forecast or to the supply plan. And now you can quickly translate your safety stock or inventory levels into a dollar amount. In regards to collaborating, the S&OP tool has embedded social collaboration tools, which are enabled by SAP's JAM technology. This allows for feedback to be posted, comments made, and tasks created. A nice thing about this functionality is people receive notifications when tasks are assigned to them or updates are made, and a history is created as to why a decision was made. In the past, when you were running an S&OP process and someone asked you why a decision was made, you had to refer back to notes or to minutes. Now this information is held in a central repository. And to assure that everyone is viewing the same data set, it has one planning area database, which means any changes, updates to the data is visible to everyone. The last benefit topic is change management and technology. And the first point is simplify your APO solution, since it removes the need to try to dollarize a forecast in DP. So now those macros can be mothballed and your DP process change can finish before 8 a.m. This saves man hours that were spent on these areas, and now this time can be spent defining dashboards and charts. And since performance concerns have been addressed, and there is an Excel front end, there are few, if any, reasons why everyone cannot use the IBP S&OP solution. Also, the S&OP tool is straightforward to implement, since it has built-in what-if scenarios, collaboration tools, and dashboards that require minor additional setup, as opposed to configuring an APO planning area with its POS, DVCs, data views, and macros from scratch. Next is a flash poll on what your plans are to improve your S&OP process, and I'll hand it back to Dan.
Thanks, David. And this is our second and last flash poll. I'll move a little bit quicker on this one, but hearing about the technology specifically for those of you in the group, what are your technology plans to improve S&OP? Maybe you're just thinking about it. Maybe you're already down that roadmap a little bit. Is it enhancing your capabilities in the core planning modules, implementing a standalone or an integrated solution, or enhancing Excel or other reporting-based tools? So please just take another 10 seconds or so and make one of the selections available on the screen. Maybe about 5 seconds more for those of you that haven't yet made a decision, and we'll close the poll. Okay. That'll be it for the results. Thanks very much for those of you that responded. Some interesting results there. It looks like most of us are looking on improving capabilities in core planning modules. So we'll talk a little bit more about how to get started going down that road, David. I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thanks, Dan. The next slide will give you an overview how you can get started. Basically, it's a three-step process where you identify your key problems, conduct a fit gap analysis to see where the shortcomings are, and then create a roadmap document. One approach that we at Spinnaker have is a 2 to 4 week rapid assessment, which is basically a fit gap analysis, which will detail where your organization currently is and what it needs to be in order to implement IBP S&OP. The other approach, which I think is interesting, is a pilot. This is loading a subset of your data into either Spinnaker's SAP IBP demo system or into your own SAP IBP solution. When loaded into the Spinnaker system, your data is partitioned to assure client security. And in either approach, a client-specific Excel template is created for you by Spinnaker, as well as a client-specific S&OP dashboard that is based on your needs. The proposed solution is then presented to your organization for review and feedback. And this allows for everyone to get an understanding of what it can or can't do and whether or not it's a good fit for your company. With both approaches, a roadmap document is created that helps organizations understand the scope, timeline steps, and resources required to roll out the solution. So today, I hope I was able to provide an insight into SAP's IBP suite and how it enables a sales and operation or integrated business planning process. Now I'm going to hand it back to Jay, who will discuss with you how you can self-assess to see where you are on the S&OP IBP maturity curve. Jay?
Thank you, David. So let's revisit Spinnaker's S&OP IBP maturity model. As we mentioned, many companies have a tendency to remain in stages 1 and stages 2. Supply Chain Insights cites 57% of respondents in their survey self-report that they are reacting or anticipating. So we invite you to self-assess yourselves with the Spinnaker maturity model. You can track your current state with the blue star on the left side of the page and determine which stages am I at. An example would be supply. Do you have individual supply plans by producing location, or do you have an entire network view? Do you set inventory only focused internally, or are you looking across the whole network? Are inventory levels set arbitrarily or by using effective tools? The next step is to use the green star to show me where I want my company to be along these same dimensions on the right side of the assessment model. The point is not to immediately go to stage 4, which is world-class, but to think about what you need to do to get significant performance improvements. Spinnaker can put you on the road to IBP by helping you move from stages 1 and 2 with the performance gaps discussed earlier to stages 3 and 4. We can help you enhance your people, process, and technology capabilities with tools that allow you to better sense demand, optimize inventory, bring in social feedback to your new launches, bring consumption data and trade inventory data into the discussion, address demand drivers, and other enhancements that will enable value for the entire business. Spinnaker helps you address the root causes we discussed earlier. So specific to where you are on the maturity curve, we can help you get to the next stage. Implementing an effective IBP process is ultimately about improving the performance of your business. Spinnaker uses a unique 5 lenses approach shown earlier that helps you move to the next stage of maturity and, importantly, achieve profitable growth, optimize costs, and improve your relationships with customers. Under people, Spinnaker can assess your organization, train your people, and perform process mapping as you would need to do for an IBP implementation. Under process, Spinnaker has a long track record in best practices, root cause and gap analysis, which we discussed earlier, process reengineering, value stream mapping, and lean analysis. Under technology, we do blueprinting, design, master data assessments, data architecture and integration, as well as analytics and metrics definition and automation, including areas David touched on, such as rapid assessments and pilots. Under policies, Spinnaker performs policy analysis and definition, process impact analysis, and assesses compliance. And lastly, with metrics, Spinnaker helps you define and prioritize operational, process, and management metrics, as well as the change management that's needed to take action on them, as we reviewed in the process framework. You can build dashboards and assess performance versus industry norms as well. To summarize, Spinnaker's offerings include training, road mapping, change and transformation management, organizational and technology assessments, technology implementations and technology management, metrics implementation, and policy assessments. And we discussed much of this today. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to be working with you in the near future. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Jay, and thank you, David, as well, and for everybody's time. We've got about 4 minutes left before the hour, so I want to use this time wisely for Q&A. We had a couple of pre-submitted questions. I saw, John, I'll cover yours first. You asked, will we have access to these slides? The quick answer is yes. We will have these posted on the LinkedIn group.